Hey, Scott.
BBB, Mark.
I said hey, not
I know.
A.
Well, I just had to do something different.
Well, we're doing something different because this is the second time in a row we're saying this is episode 16.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oops.
man, that flood. Still dealing with some of the effects of it, and it's just a super bummer. And we'll talk about that in the next segment. But,
Yeah, because we're going to have to work some schedules.
yeah, we are. Anyways, thank you guys for coming back, especially after the delayed episode 15. And it's just a whole series of things. We talked about at the start of that one, but we really appreciate you guys being here, coming back, just trusting us. We love doing this. So thank you.
And I'm just going to speak for them. You're welcome.
Oh, hey, thanks.
Oh, look at us.
Scott.
Mark.
What's on your table, bro?
Not a lot.
Sure.
Have had my life went a little weird in the last week and a half as well.
Yeah.
So you had flood.
Yep.
I had job search.
We're in a 95% put back together studio.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely different. It's a little warmer than what was over at Jason's house.
Yeah, that's very true.
Who poor boy.
Yeah.
He has a Michigan basement. So he has
I have a northern Indiana basement, so it's not much better.
It's not much better. So on my table, I had to play a little bit of For Northwood. I still love that game.
Yep.
It still boggles my mind. Solo trick taking. It's so good.
It really is.
It is. It's just one of those things I'm like, how?
Because that's a game that just a PDF of a new campaign. It's all you need. You can expand it. You don't need to add anything else. Just really, that game's amazing.
If they want to add new cards, God, there was an old card game called like 5 Crowns. They could sit there and give us another kingdom and have us have 5 suits.
Yeah.
And there's another, 14 cards? Yeah. So good. Just so good. And then, obviously, speaking of Theater Geeks, and this will be a great segue, we finished up Tariki
Oh, we did.
from Lucky Duck.
So good.
So good!
I am very proud of us that we got all 10 points.
Right?
We got a perfect score.
We got the perfect score. I think we had to have found every single way to make food.
We had to.
We had to have.
Yeah.
Other than, I don't know what else we could have done. Like, you created an aquarium, and you caught the fish, and you made the fish breed.
Well, and I know we missed something, at least one thing.
Yeah.
Because that crocodile ran away from Jason, and he was very upset about that.
He was really upset about that one.
Yeah, no, that game was great. And sad it took us 3 months to finish it, but boy, am I glad that we got to finish it.
Lucky Duck makes great games. We all know that. They're all typically family weight. They're not super...
Well, I don't know if I would say that entirely.
a lot of them are in the family weight category, I would say. I feel.
You're right when it comes to their own designs, but they do collaborate, and when they collaborate, they do tend to...
They get to that other sphere where it gets a little bit
They can
harder.
get a little darker. They can get a little, because the new Dark Quarter is coming out, I believe, in conjunction with Lucky Duck. I have that on pre-order. I'm very excited for it.
Oh, fantastic. But for a family weight game, so good. And we laughed so hard.
So much. And it's one of those games that it is intended as a family weight game, but it allows you to have multiple save files, which is great. If I had that as a kid, I would be going on that island constantly and playing it over and over, because you and I, we now know all the answers. We do all the stuff. But for a family of just... maybe they're not as thorough as we are, or, we played it in 2 essentially 4-hour chunks.
Yep.
So if you aren't playing it quite that way, I feel like there's a reason for families to go back to it. We ended up letting Tara take it to her family and try it out with them. And especially the fact that it's only like $30. It is really, really great.
The pieces snap back into the board, and you just slide all the extra map pieces into an envelope.
Yep.
Like,
the only thing that she's going to have to reprint is the PDF of the wildlife booklet, which...
that's nothing.
Yeah.
We
could erase it because we made sure to do it in pencil, but it was one of those, it's a really neat concept. I love the fact it is resettable like that. And I know they sponsored us with that. They gave us that copy, but we have beaten up on games that we have been given so far. And that one is one that I can't find any fault with it.
No.
Outside of trying to find that last coin, because it didn't entirely make sense to us until Jason finally sat down and looked at the board. It's like, oh, okay. We had the right thing, but the wrong thing in the right spot.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It was
really, really neat.
Such good quality. So other than Tariki, what else was on your table?
Very little, frankly.
Flood, yeah.
Yeah, the flood happened. So I started the year out. I got Moonrakers on the table, and I was playing a round of Luminor with that. Got absolutely handed. Absolutely lost that first game.
Oh, my.
Was hoping that wasn't the where things were going for the start of the year. And then my office flooded. So I guess that's my catastrophe. We got to play Neo Dreams.
We did.
Which neither of us are really comfortable doing a table shelf trade or a review format yet. Mm-hmm. This was provided to us by Hobby World. I love it though. I really, really hope that its continued plays are as strong as that first impression for me, because I was just about it. Really enjoyed that.
It's gorgeous, and I hope that another play will let me have a different opinion.
And then the last thing I've gotten to play, and I've actually only gotten to play it digitally so far, but I've ordered a copy of it already because Far Away is great. So it is a simple card game. That's all it is. It is essentially 2 decks of cards. I think they are square cards, and then there's like small, like those Elder Sign cards that you use for like, items and stuff.
Yeah.
So you are playing over 8 rounds, and each round you are going to play a card down. And if you play a number that is higher than the card you played previously, then you get an extra of the smaller cards. And the smaller cards are just going to stay on the table and give you either extra scoring conditions or extra icons, whatever. At the end of the 8th round, you are going to flip all your cards over, and then you're going to flip over the last one you played, and you're going to score that one. And then you're going to flip over the second card, and you're going to score that one based off of the cards you have and the cards that are face up. So you are going to build your scoring combo from the start, and then you're going to score it backwards. It's a really, really great idea. The game takes less than 10 minutes, and scoring is really straightforward. It falls very much into that Red Rising fantasy realms kind of genre, but it plays so smoothly and the scoring is so good. Yeah, I went out and I just bought it immediately.
From Pandasaurus? Mm-hmm. I like Pandasaurus. Pandasaurus is good stuff. I've looked at it, and it looks like they've got an expansion that's getting ready to come out too.
Yeah, so that is coming out.
People from Below.
That is coming out in March. Okay. I may or may not already have that on pre-order as well, because it's like a $6 expansion. And it just adds in a few new cards. And so basically the cards range from 1 to 68, I believe. And there's only 1 copy of each card. So the expansion is adding in 0, and then it's going up to like 77 or something.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of cards. It's actually a little card pack the way they did for the expansion for
Sea Salt and Paper.
Sea Salt and Paper. Yep.
Love that.
So other than that, between dealing with the effects of the flood, not being able to get into the studio, make sure everything dried out, all that stuff, I've been receiving a lot into the studio and preparing myself. That's how we got to play Neo Dreams today.
Yep.
We have a few other things sitting here that there's a couple of them that we are just freaking out about.
I mean, the one, I had tears in my eyes. Not even gonna lie.
I know you did.
Oh.
Yeah. We're very excited for that. So that content will be coming over time.
Yes, it will be, because I have to learn a system.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right, let's move on.
Sounds good. This is weird, because we're talking about ending things, but we're at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So our topic of the week this time is game end conditions.
Yes. Essentially, when I was concepting this as a topic, I think we talked about this before in the sense of people are really loving White Castle from DeVere Games. Mm-hmm. White Castle is 9 rounds long. Mm-hmm. That's it. And apparently, unless you make your combos and everything work right, and it's one of those games that the more you play it, the more you understand it, it can end very quickly.
Ooh.
Because in games like that, I actually tend to not like it is 9 rounds, or Star Tycoon is 12 rounds, or whatever. Like, right. You know this is when the game is going to end. Versus, like, Neo Dreams that we just played, if we knew there was an end condition
right.
that we had to trigger. And then there's other things like Expeditions where the end triggers and then the game just stops dead.
Right.
So I know there are other ways for games to end, hit high scores, or one person runs out of cards, or whatever. So that's what we're talking about, of what do you prefer in a game? I'm assuming, just like every other topic we talk about, it's going to be on a game-by-game scenario for most things. But what do you generally like seeing in a game? What do you feel constrained by or not like, or whatever? When a game ends, what's good about it and what's bad?
So typically, like, if it's a game that has, like, this ends in so many rounds, I tend to feel like I'm wanting more and not on the good side. Like, it's like, I just get my engine built, or I just get the mechanics down, and all of a sudden we're done. And so it's always like a little of a letdown, want feeling.
Sure.
Oh, great.
I remember when we played Wormholes from AEG, that was one of those games where the game ends 5 turns after somebody has finished building their wormhole network.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame because that game, the mechanisms within it are actually a ton of fun. But then the game's like, okay, now that you have this big wormhole network across the galaxy, game's over, you're done. It's like, oh, bummer. We don't actually get to use the really cool interlinked system.
I spent this much time getting this thing to work and now we're just done? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, not a fan of that. With Neo Dream, since that's the one we just got done playing, of course, it said, like, you know, after the 12th card was played, which I mean, I guess that's fine because that it swings. Sometimes it can be much longer if we're trying to plan and figure out what works well and trying to figure out the combos and stuff like that. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Sentry does that as well.
Sentry does it with that. Ex Libris does it with that.
Yeah. So it's like once you get so many cards out, I mean, you can kind of gauge how things are going. Hopefully, you're not like me who always feels like he's falling behind and is trying to play catch up when it's that type of style.
Just using those 3 games as a comparison, really different way that each one of them handles it. Because Sentry just says after the 5th or in a 2-player game, 6th card is purchased. I believe the game has 1 more turn each and then it's done.
I think so.
Ex Libris says once you have 12 cards out, whatever it is, that scales based on player count. That determines when the game ends. And what's interesting about that is there are many ways in Ex Libris to play more cards than not. And so there can be a turn you can play 2 or 3 cards in your library, which means you can really accelerate the ending. In Sentry, you're looking at it of, am I willing to rush the ending by buying little cards, or do I just want to try and buy a couple of big cards and hope that's enough? And Neo Dreams is kind of a mix of the two, because of the way the turn retrieval stuff, the returnal actions, where if you take one of those cycle actions to pull guys correctly, if you've set up correctly, you could potentially play 3 cards in 1 turn. It'd be very expensive, very hard to pull off, but you might be able to do that. So that's actually an ending mechanism that I really enjoy, and I like that there are so many different ways to approach it, because all 3 of those games I very much enjoy.
Oh, yeah. The big one for me that I definitely prefer, especially when it comes to, here is the end goal, this is the trigger. I hate it when it goes, and we're done.
Yeah.
Because if you're the first player and there's 4 of us and I'm player number 4, I'm done.
Yeah.
There was 3 more actions I could have maybe played off of. Just continue it. So everyone has an equal amount of turns. Everyone has an equal amount of play. I mean, a lot of those games where they do that, you're still able to, even if you're the first player, you might still have actions that you could do for every other person. And it's like, yeah, great. You get your 10th point. That triggers the end, and that's supposed to be a stopping point. But maybe you'd be able to get to 13 or 14 to sink it in that, yeah, I've got it. I hate when it's not player turns aren't even.
Generally, I agree with you. There are games like Scythe and Expeditions where, you put your 6-star out, you're done. Like, that's game.
Right.
The reason I don't mind it there is because there's so many ways to play with the efficiencies that it is very possible to still win even with those uneven turns. And in fact, it is to your advantage to try and end the game a number of times because there is so much that can be done on a particular turn. So in that, where it's a race where that's going to happen, that is much more, I have the games I like it in, but there are definitely times where it just feels bad, where it's like, oh, I guess I lose because I don't get another shot. Villainous is that way. Like the Queen of Hearts. If you're the Queen of Hearts and you pull off your croquet shot,
right,
and on my next turn I should be able to win, like, I guess just bummer for turn order.
Right. Those are my big things. Okay, I feel robbed. And it actually makes me think about the game differently. Even if I'm the one that wins, it's still like, oh, but we didn't get to play as much.
I think I still prefer that generally over set amount of rounds, though, because I like not knowing when the end is going to come. I like in games when I'm watching them and maybe I don't know where our scores are at. Maybe I don't know who has hitting control, because a game like Cyclades, where the game just ends as soon as one person has 2 metropolises, people can pull some really crazy turns in that game and bang, there's 2 metropolises within a turn, and I can't believe you did that. Meanwhile, there can be a lot of tension and pulling and combat going on, and, well, I guess this game's going to take a while.
Okay.
I like not knowing that I have 8 turns and then my game's up. Far Away I really enjoy because the game is 10 minutes. So those 8 cards, great. Put them down, score them, that takes 30 seconds, and then we're done. Versus a game like White Castle, which I haven't played, but if I am playing badly or inefficiently, that my game is done so much shorter than yours because you know what you're doing. When I play a game with a set number of rounds, it generally benefits the player who has played the game more. Feast for Odin, you've never played, right?
No.
So my first game, I actually scored very well, but then it took me a long time to get that score consistently, where I was breaking 100 points. And you start 88 points in the hole, which means I scored 188 points to get to positive 100.
Okay.
And it is one of the few games that I don't mind that there's only 7 rounds in, because each round gets longer because you get more workers each round.
Okay.
So that means you have more options, more stuff's going to happen. But again, that's one of those few exceptions where I know the game is only 7 rounds, but I don't mind it because I know how much game comes out of those rounds. But I also know that as the player that has played it 100 plus times, I will stomp your face in because you've never played it and it takes a lot to figure that game out.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons I like the variable end condition is just because it is more of a leveling factor, I feel like.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. We're going to have different opinions on that type of stuff. Yeah, I would much rather everything be even. Just I don't like feeling icky at the end of the game.
Sure, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I agree. So what about a game like Dune Imperium, where the game is going to end at either the end of the 10th round or if somebody hits a certain point threshold? So you know the game can end early, but if nobody pulls that threshold off, then it will end at this point.
I mean, especially when you're sitting with something like Dune Imperium. I mean, again, that I need to play it again before I'm going to have a full opinion about it. But that type of win condition, it can be one of those things of noticing a person's trying to run for the points and then me playing direct opposition against it because maybe I want it to go to 10. But I think, that you have a little bit more control on. So, yeah, because I could definitely slow a person down or all of a sudden sit there and make a very conceited effort to make you, you want to go for points? Okay, let's go for points. And then, ramp up whatever I'm doing to, put stress against you.
I feel like what I ultimately dislike about having a set number of rounds without some other trigger going, because I actually do like that in Dune Imperium a lot, it helps keep the tension of that game alive, is if I only have 15 turns or, I get 3 actions for 3 rounds, whatever. If I have to take a pass action or if I have to I'm just taking resources or whatever, like there are so many moments in games like that where I just feel like, I've wasted a turn. Obsession is one of the few exceptions where you are either going to have 16 or 20 rounds depending, but you are going to pass at least twice within them. And so figuring out when that pass turn, and especially once you start using expansions and pass turns become so much richer, I enjoy that portion of the game. But if I only have 9 turns and if I have to collect resources on 3 of them, that's what burns me because I'm sitting there thinking, so essentially a third of my game I'm not playing.
You're not wrong there. I mean, and that also could just be maybe that happens to accidentally be like poor game design when that type of stuff happens, because you would hope that everything would be weighted well enough that, okay, yeah, I got to do this turn for resources. Like it wasn't such a desperate need of resources that it caused me to blow a turn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting.
Now, and I believe this has probably come up when we've talked about Tapestry in the past, but that idea of your game can end at a different time than somebody else's. Tapestry is one of the few games that I am cool with it in, and even then, there's still moments where like, boy, this can take a long time. Wormspan. We've watched Jason take an extra 6-8 turns beyond us. You have a game like Everdell where if things are either going really well for you or alternately very poorly for you, you could be sitting there watching other people take turns 10, 15, 30 minutes after you're done.
Right.
And at that point, you just know you're losing.
Yeah.
I guess that also links into player elimination, but those are different games normally speaking.
Yes,
so
very much so. Very, very much so. I guess I also wouldn't care for difference of turns because, when you have that whole in-worm span where, I can sit there and hold on to all my tokens and have 3 extra rounds. Yeah, that's not fun because your friends are just sitting there and you're here to play a game and play games with each other. And I'm basically playing by myself at that point.
If I'm sitting there with my final score and I have calculated and done everything and you are still taking turns, I do not like that at all.
Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan at all.
I do have one more.
Yeah. What you got?
Ticket to Ride.
Okay.
So essentially the race ending. So you can say Ticket to Ride or Clank or, a variety of games where the game can end at a player's discretion and essentially becomes a race.
Right.
So Clank, you can run in and grab the first relic or treasure or whatever it's called, and then just skedaddle out and hope that you get everybody by going quick.
Right.
Or you have something like Ticket to Ride where as soon as you are at 3 or fewer trains, everybody gets one more turn. And I feel like in a game like that, and when we talked about Beyond the Sun, I am consistently 1 turn short. And I feel like every time I play Ticket to Ride, I'm 1 turn short because people have just been just efficient enough above me.
Right.
So that, I actually really like that type of ending where it just ends.
I guess it also depends on
I
the
still
length
want
of the game.
Okay,
also.
that's fair.
Because Ticket to Ride, it takes time to be able to get down to that 3, 2, 1 trains left mechanic to trigger that end.
I like that end condition in Ticket to Ride specifically because you are constantly gauging your efficiency. Because if you're not paying attention, you could end the game really quick accidentally. And because, I'm just going to take this spot and I'm going to take this spot and then I'm going to take this spot. Oh no, I can't take that 6th spot that I was trying to build for because I don't have the trains for it anymore.
Nope.
So I really like when your actions make you aware of the end game coming up. And every time I play Ticket, I feel that way. Where I get shorted by you is that you are somehow always just that much more efficient than me and you end it before I can.
So I will say when it comes to Ticket to Ride, I will be the first to admit I am a jerk when it comes to that game. And it's not on purpose. For whatever reason, I am just able to assimilate the map really, really fast and look at my dots and know what my shortest path is.
Well, I think part of that is, like I just said about Feast for Odin, I've played that so many times, I understand the loop of the game. When you've played Ticket to Ride as many times as you have, that makes sense. It's been, I think, more fair in Legends of the West, which we still need to finish.
Yeah.
Because we are essentially at a 50-50 win rate in the Legacy campaign right now. But I know if we threw Standard America down, you would just ace me so fast.
Right. And unfortunately, well, especially when I play normal Ticket to Ride, I'm just playing against myself. And I hate to say it like that, but I am. I'm not competitive against the people that I'm playing with because of how many times I've played that game.
Yeah.
And I know how easy it is to end that game.
I think that's really kind of the major scope of the varieties out there, I think.
It also depends on the game itself. Like if the finish fits the game, if it fits that theme, if it fits the mechanics. I think sometimes a lot of those times when I'm playing those games where I'm like, it's like this ended abruptly or this ended in a way I'm like, it doesn't fit everything else that's going on within the game because it's just, I'm left jarred.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like the way the scoring endings work for games like Dune Imperium or Twilight Imperium, those Imperium games.
Yeah.
Where every point, especially in TI4, but every point feels like an accomplishment. And I guess as a side tangent, but I very much prefer lower scoring games where the points matter more versus Blood Rage where you can win 500 to 180 because just have
that's
points.
Just a thing.
I'm not the hugest fan of point salads. So any game that says, here's your point threshold, or here is the game end, because TI has the same thing of it is 10 points, or if you want to play the extended track, there's a longer score track, but you're going to be done essentially at the end of round 9.
Right.
Now, each one of those rounds is going to take a full hour or more, but when you score, it feels so good that even when you've only scored 4 or 5 points by the end of the game, like you still accomplished a lot in that game.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that is interesting, just as we're kind of thinking this through, is everything we just talked about is in competitive. When it comes to cooperative games, I mean, there's fewer overall win conditions possible because it's like you play Pandemic, there's 5 different ways to lose. There's one way to win.
Yep.
And Sentinels, there's a whole bunch of ways to lose. There's one way to win. And so I feel like cooperative games, there's a harder usage of the conversation just because you are in whatever scenario or setup or whatever you're doing. And while you may have a couple different endings that you can get, there may be a couple different ways to win. More often than not, it's ways to lose. And now you're just critiquing the game itself, not really how it ends. I do think it's interesting in the sense of when it comes to competitive games, I have so many different opinions on how a game ends versus a cooperative, because instead of it being the ending, it really comes down to how accomplishable is the ending.
Right.
So
yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, your endings in a co-op game literally are typically, here's the list of ways you lose. This is the only way you win.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that makes sense personally, because you have everybody's working on the same goal.
Yeah.
So, Interesting. It's kind of weird when you sit here and think about all the games that we've played and all the different ways that you end up having to try to accomplish the end.
So I thought it was a fun topic.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Bravo, sir.
All right. On that.
Hey, Bat Family. Scott here. Join me and my friends for a weekly live play tabletop storytelling game on Theater Geeks Twitch channel. Check out www.twitch.tv/theatergeeks on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Jason's favorite part because, as you can tell by the way I'm introducing this portion, it's my game for the why did I play that? I mean, technically it's a little bit of both of us, but it's more targeting you than it is.
Very much more targeting me.
Because the game that I brought to the table was Azul. Queen's Garden, which I do love. The fact I do love about this game is the fact that we could compare this one to Calico. And have a very good this or that with it, which I think we both would fall in the same line.
Yeah, I mean, you could even line this up with Harmonies the same way.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So, those of you who don't know, Azul Queen's Garden follows along the lines of everything that happens within Azul, where you have a centralized garden where you are placing tiles and you have extra portions of the garden that you are trying to add on to it, and you're trying to circle the park bench and the statuaries and the gazebos for points. You have the tiles where you're collecting sets and between different colors or different shapes that are on each of the tiles to put them in your collection so that you can then use them to put out the pieces, because you have to spend as many tiles as depending on what shape is on the tile. It's very interesting. It looks very, very nice. I mean, it has a very nice table presence. I mean, once you get it out there and you have all the tiles on it, it looks neat. It's a bit of a bear of a game, and I will be the first one to admit it. I know how you feel about this game. There are wild tiles that you can use to help purchase and pay for your needs when it comes to this game. Typical Azul scoring that goes on.
Not really typical.
Well,
it's more similar to Summer Pavilion than original.
Oh, that's true. You're right. It is more Summer Pavilion. It's the fourth in the line from the Azul set.
Mm-hmm.
Because it started
fourth main line.
Fourth main line, yes. Nothing, because they did Chocolatier, which
and
was...
then there's the minis. And
yes.
There's expansions to at least two of them.
You describe games better than I do. When it's my turn, I'm always talking about the aesthetic. I've never actually talked about the gameplay. So you're always talking about the gameplay. So
we are that. That is what people come to this podcast for, is you're the shiny, look at this.
I'm the consumer.
And I am the researcher.
Yep.
So...
that being said...
oh, boy. So let's start here, because we have talked various bits of Azul a lot, and I believe it was as recently as episode 14, I think, where I talked about Azul falling off for me.
Right.
When I look at the Azul series as a whole, the first one is by far the best to me.
Oh, I would agree.
I think I actually like this one second best, which is really saying something, because I really dislike the second and third ones.
Yeah.
Sintra always just felt like, here's Azul, but more gamery, because you want it to be more gamery, and I never really liked that. And Summer Pavilion is a 2-player game only, because a 3-player game, the third person is going to king make, and if you're in a 4-player game, you're in a 3rd-player game, but the 4th player is getting screwed.
Okay.
I do not like Summer Pavilion at all. It is by far my least favorite of them. So when I come into Queen's Garden, and I say that it's my second favorite of the line, that's not really great praise.
No.
So there is a big difference, a really, really big difference between this and the regular Azul drafting, even out of something like Summer Pavilion, which is the third in line, where instead of it being you're going to take some tiles off of one of them, shove them into the middle, and then you're good to go, what's going to happen is you're going to pull tiles off of a stack of these center, essentially septagons, that you will then pull everything of that color off of all the remaining ones. So there's no middle per se, and the game will just continue to expand out as the pile runs out between rounds, which means on some turns you might end up with one thing, and on other turns you might end up with 12 things, and it feels much less controllable than in regular Azul, where like, I know that I have to get these now or I'm going to drop 3 tiles. In this one, it feels very much like, oh, well, this is what I get because I have to take that tile, which I can't use as well. That's cool, I guess.
If you're picking up the color, you could still only pick up one of each shape, or if you're picking up the shape, you can only pick up one of each color.
That's fair.
So the maximum you're going to grab is 6.
Even these count for them, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking up one of these space tiles.
Yeah.
And the space tiles are interesting where you actually place them, because you are going to be expanding out as the game grows, but you are still limited in how many ways you can grow, but it's not as constrained as something like Harmonies or Calico. I do like the fact that when you draft one of the expansion tiles, what I called the space tiles earlier, you can either go as a blank side or as a side that has an icon and also something else to surround. If I remember correctly, these have a different cost to
yes, you if you go blank and it costs you more, you lose points.
Yeah. So that central mechanism of to place a tile, you have to discard other tiles. I do not like it in this game. It is way too constrained. It is way too difficult to pull off because the tiles just might not come out. And this has been a complaint that you've heard me say in other games. But when it comes to regular Azul, it's not as big of a deal because if the red tiles don't come out, whatever. I can still use the blue tiles or the black tiles that came out. It doesn't really bother me. In this game, you could just get hosed if the other players just take everything that you need.
That's true.
And your turn order is really important this one again. So it has that same thing from Summer Pavilion. It has the surrounding mechanism, which should feel better than it does, but it only gives you these wild tiles, which just eat up your very limited storage inventory. It's long. I don't like it. And I disagree when it comes to the production. I actually think the boards are busy. I don't like the iconography on the stuff. It's weird. I don't know. It seems too similar, but also, I don't know. Like, I appreciate that the icons on the tiles themselves try to be representative of the number they're worth and their cost. So, like the bird wings, that's 2.
Yeah. Yep.
The flock of doves is 3 because there's 3 on there. But you look at the flower that's 5 and it's like, okay, that's technically 5 petals.
Because it's 4 leaves and then the actual bloom. Yeah, I get it. It's a stretch.
It's a stretch. I don't like this game at all. Yeah. This is by far a trade for me. It's probably a 4. If you really convinced me to play it again, sure. But I will be playing because other people want to play, not because I'm going to enjoy my time with it.
Right. This game is honestly a trade for me as well. I own it because I like Azul. And so I got the next one of the series and was like, ooh. And so we played it, my friends and I, we played it a couple times and we were like, yeah, this is fun, but not as fun as other ones, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a trade for me as well.
What's funny is when the first one came out, it came out around the time of Sagrada and the two got compared constantly.
Which I don't see.
Never understood it. Don't get it. They got compared constantly. I bought both of those. Sagrada, still in my collection. We've talked at length about how much I love that series.
Yeah, because it's an amazing series.
And even though it's only 2 games, but by God, that's a series.
Yeah.
When it comes to Azul, I bought the first one. I enjoyed it. I've worn out on it, but I still enjoyed my time with it. Bought the second one, really disliked it, got rid of it. Bought the third one, really disliked it, got rid of it. Didn't waste my money on the fourth one. Right. This is the only one that I did not buy, and I'm very happy I didn't.
Yeah, I'm okay not having it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But it was definitely one of those, especially when we were talking about the differences between Cascadia and Calico. I wanted this on the table because this, I feel, is Calico worse.
Yes, I agree with that.
And also, it's not as good of a game.
And the production's not as good.
No.
These player boards are so thin.
Yeah, horrible.
This main board is curved.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. My stuff, I have no moisture. There's,
Not to mention the fact that it is a routine complaint of mine of having to teach Azul because I hate teaching the scoring. Teaching the scoring on this one is awful.
Oh, wasn't it horrible?
Oh, man. There's so many weird ways it scores because there's actually a kind of a neat mechanism where you turn this central thing and what it puts its prongs around, that's what you're scoring for that round. So it does have a little bit of that cartographer's thing of, this is what you're aiming for this round. This is what's going to be scoring. Yep. But if those weird 5 petal leaves don't come out in that round,
yeah, you're not going to score it.
Then other than trying to get the set bonuses off of them, you're never going to want to draft them.
Correct.
I do not like this game.
It had to come up on the table. It had to.
Yeah. For you, this is more of a reinforcement of an opinion that I developed over time because of how much you've really grown to like Calico. It makes sense that it is a trade for you at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But
I have been introduced to so many much better games.
Yeah.
And Calico is a much better game comparatively.
Not that we keep meaning to talk about those same 2 games over and over again, but boy, do we like those games.
Well, in the course of the podcast, those are the 2 games that we had the biggest difference of opinion on, to the point where I know I got touch heated because it was just like we weren't understanding each other, and I think that's
we understood each other. We just knew we weren't going to convince each other.
Yes, exactly, and I think we both like trying to convince the other person.
Yeah, that's very fair. Our upcoming off week segment is another this or that, and we'll get heated in that one too.
Oh, I mean, we'll get heated in that one, but we'll be in agreement, which will be weird.
Yeah, we might be. Anyways,
so
that's why did I play that, and I could have gone without it.
Table shelf trade. Table shelf trade.
What is your first one?
My first one, I actually decided that I was gonna go smaller box for this table shelf and trade. I own all three of these. They're all tables. None of them are shelves because there are games that are better. I still own them. I will probably still always own them because they're small boxes. You know. So my first one, an old one. I like competitive dice games where we're both trying to get the same thing. Like Moon Rollers kind of did that in an aspect, but it was when it came to the end of the day. I mean, we both know how we both felt about Moon Rollers.
Yeah.
I like the simplicity of Roll For It.
I have never played Roll For It.
Really?
I've also never played Left, Right, Center and all those.
Yeah.
Spot It. Never played that.
Right. Roll For It. You have a little lineup of cards. You have your dice. When you place your dice on those cards, because they're points, 3 to 5 points, 3 to 6 points, or something like that. Sometimes it's as easy as just getting one die on there, and it's going to be like 2 whole points. Other times it's trying to get a straight, trying to get 4 of a kind. And it would be specific numbers typically, or there might be like if I remember correctly, because it has been a while since I've played it, there might be the star on there, which indicates a wild, but once you put it as that, it's locked in there.
And Roll For It, remind me, it has like a purple and a yellow version or something like that?
Yes. When I picked up mine, I got the deluxe version.
That has both.
Shocker. And it has like enough dice that I can have like 8 people play.
Sure.
And the reason why I like it, because it's just a simple, quick, easy game. Like
the way you're describing it makes me think of Project L.
It's a little like Project L, the simplicity of Project L. Okay. Because, you're flipping over tile and you know what you need to put in the tile to make it work, and you know what your rewards are depending on what happens. But like there's that a little bit of a slight race aspect, because if I roll a bunch of 3s and you roll a bunch of 3s, we're both putting them on that one card. Who gets it first? But also note that when I put my dice on that card, it's locked on that card until either I don't have any dice left or it's won. Either I'm going to complete it or you're going to complete it, and it's stuck on there until it's done. It's not very expensive. It was done by Noble Knight Games. I mean, right now I'm hopped online. You can get it for $35, and that's just because you're getting a lot of dice.
Sure.
You're going to pay for those materials that are in there. But yeah, done by Calliope Games. Okay. I just dig it. I get the deluxe. I like the deluxe edition. Just get it, go for it. Especially if it's one of those things, if you want something you just kind of take with you.
So would you say it's more of a diner game? Because you used that phrase in the last episode of, I'm going to sit there. I'm just going to sit and talk and have fun. And this has something to do with my hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very much that. It's like, oh, we're gonna go get coffee. Cool, let's go get coffee. I'll bring this with me, so we just have something else to stimulate to keep
Sure.
We're playing this game to keep the mind juices flowing.
Have you played Strike?
I own Strike, and I've never cracked it open.
It sounds like it occupies that space that Strike does for me, where you're just chucking dice, talking, having fun, like, oh, hey, look what I got, and then,
That sounds about right, yeah. But
cool.
I've always really, really enjoyed it. It will stay on my shelf because it's literally like a 4x6. It's nothing. It has very little shelf space.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my first table.
So I was pretty rough in the last episode.
Yeah, you were to be fair.
Despite the fact one of them was a shelf, I think there is a very real argument of I still wasn't that happy about it.
No, you weren't.
C'est la vie. So I tried to be more positive today. So I'm actually going to go in reverse chronological order because I accidentally brought 3 kind of older games to this.
Okay.
The first one is one of my all-time favorite games. It has always been in my top 100 ever since I've done it. I don't understand why the publisher let this hit and vanish the way it did.
Okay.
And I am convinced it's because $55 was too much for it at the time.
Okay.
And frankly, it's too much for it now.
Okay.
But Sentient by J. Alex Kevern is a fascinating game. It is a set collection game that is also a bidding and area control game. So there are essentially just a couple of parts that you have to focus on. And this is interesting that we're talking about games that only have 4 rounds or how a game ends, because this only has 4 rounds in it. And I really appreciate the way this one does it. So you have a player board in front of you that you are going to roll some beautiful dice at the start of the round and then never roll them again until the next round. But you are bidding on taking a card. And when you bid for a card, you literally just going to take one or more of your pieces, put it above said card, and you're going to put that on your tableau between 2 of your dice. Sorry, there are 5 dice, not 4. And that card is going to have symbols in the top left and right corners because that is going to adjust the dice. And each card has a condition on it that you must meet. And if you meet that condition, then you get to score it.
Okay.
And there's some that are very strict. You have to have this. There's some that your numbers have to combine to be lower than this or higher than this, whatever. There are other cards that say you get these points, but you get more points if you pull off both of these, that type of stuff.
Okay.
And the final portion of the area control is whoever has the most bid in each area is going to get a special scoring token, and whoever's second is just going to score points. Because at the end of the game, you are going to multiply the number of cards in a set times the number of these scoring tokens you have. So you are trying to get the tokens you need without overpaying, because you are going to have your main 4 bidding guys, but then you have a handful of these little tokens that you can either use to increase your bid, or you can put over top of one of the corners on the card, which means it's not going to adjust a die. And the interior die can all be affected by 2 different cards. So it has to be very tactical of, I'm going to bid for this card, but I have to make sure that this die doesn't change. So you're going to go through a round of bidding, and you're going to do that 4 times. And at the end of it, you're going to score off all this stuff.
Okay.
Some really, really neat ideas here. The production is beautiful, but it's very thin. So this box art, which is
it's stunning,
super evocative. It is this really beautifully painted android. She is on one of the 5 card types. Each of the 5 card types have the same art. So there's 5 pieces of art plus the cover, and then that's about it. Like, there's next to no theme in this. There's next to no art in this.
Interesting.
The dice are gorgeous, and you only roll them 4 times a game. Like, there's some weird production here. And I really think what sunk it was too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, if it's $55, I mean, even from Renegade, that's...
And back in 2017?
Yeah, that's a lot, because most games were,
40 to 50
and
had
to
a lot
50
more in
and had a lot more in them.
Now, that said, this is a game that I will only pull out with a certain group of people because it is, basic equations, the board game. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, it looks like a lot of math.
And it's all simple math, but it is all math.
It's math.
And so if you don't have that bone in your body, you're not going to enjoy this. But for the people that I do pull it out with, they love it as much as I do.
That would be a game I would be all about because I'm a math nerd.
But this also is the game that made me look at what J. Alex Kevern does as a designer. And I still haven't played anywhere near enough of his games. The only one that I have had you play is World's Fair 1893, which was okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
I like it as a lightweight entry game for people, but it's just okay.
It's okay.
But Sentient, it's gorgeous, and you can't find it anymore. So if anything happens to this, I will be very upset.
Wow. Yeah.
So that one is a very strong shelf for me.
Very nice. My next table came out in 1997. I didn't realize my games are all relatively old.
Nice.
This one is one of my favorite card games from Yellow.
Okay.
Niet.
I have never played Niet.
Are you kidding? I love Niet.
Says the Russian polar bear on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, they're all fantastic. So yeah, it's a fantastic trick-taking game where part of the game is sitting there like deciding what isn't the rules of the game, what you're not doing, or no, I will not be doing this. Blue is not Trump. I will not be passing any cards. That's always fun. And just choosing what's different for each round and scoring the points. So I mean, very simple trick-taking game. Just every round the rules can change.
It's again making me think of Lunar, but without that split number.
Yes, there's no split. There's no split number. Yeah, so like literally you pick who is your Trump, how many cards get passed if they get passed, who is the starting player, because depending on who's playing depends on what players are available. There is the number ones depending on you choose which one of them is a super Trump. So yeah, like all the blue cards can be Trump, but the green one is a super Trump, which trumps everything. And then it's for how many tricks you take determines how many points they're worth.
Nice. Okay. Interesting.
And you could also have it be negative points for every trick you take. So you could sit there and even have that whole little thing like, oh, cool, you weren't paying attention. You're way ahead. Awesome. Boom. So yeah, you set yourself up that, oh yeah, you've got a handful of blue cards. Cool. So of course you're trying to make sure that blue happens to trump. But now we're making sure that, oh, look, every trick you take, it's worth negative 2 points.
So it definitely sounds like one that you would want for more people in general.
Yeah, I've played it with 2, and it was fine because you don't usually do the whole. Very rarely did I ever play with the negative 2.
Sure.
But I mean, it's still one of those of like, okay, how do I get what I need and not make it obvious? Not make it obvious. A lot of fun.
Nice.
Great game. I'm pretty sure it's out of print.
I think it has a relatively newer print because it's a small square box.
It's a small square box. It's like a 4x4,
and
about 2 inches deep.
Man, I don't remember who's got it right now, but I know I've seen copies of it relatively recently.
Really?
I think it is still in print.
It's so much fun, especially for me with who I like trick-taking games.
Yeah. All right, my next game is one that I think I am the only person in the world that is a champion for. It
okay.
may or may not be exiting my collection. I haven't fully decided because I weirdly can't get people to play it, which is wild. And I think part of it is the art, because the art is okay, but it's also a little like, put some shirts back on people. So we have talked about in the past where I love dark fairy tale themes. When I am playing a game, if you tell me it's Alice in Wonderland, I'm there, I'm in. And if it's not there, so long as you're in that realm, like I will still look at you. Gingerbread House by Phil Walker Harding went to just for the theme. Ultimately didn't last in my collection, but I looked at it because it's fairy tales.
Okay.
When you go to dark fairy tales, or specifically Dark Tales,
okay,
it's a game that I love. It is a combo building game where on your turn, you are going to have a hand of cards. You're going to draw a card into your hand. You may have a token that you can play, and then you will just play a card. And the game goes until the deck of cards runs out.
Okay.
And the base game is just generic fairy tales. So you have ogres and trolls and princesses and wizards and kings and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
What's really cool about the game is in addition to everything else that's going on, you have a central part of the board that you are going to have potentially a line of cards in that could be taken from by either player, but there's also a day or night card. And depending on if it is day or night, depends on how the card scores. So if you like Jump Drive in the way that it kind of scores and then you play another card and you're going to get some more scoring, you're going to do more like that. This has that type of mechanism.
Okay.
Then you have the ability to slot in the expansions. And when you slot in the expansions, you're generally going to only pick one of them. And there's Little Red Riding Hood and the Little Mermaid and Cinderella. And I actually really like the Cinderella one. And then I forget what the fourth one is. Point is, there are these little expansions that just add in a few more cards and some more thematic ties. They could change up tokens, all that.
Okay.
But what is my number one thing that I love talking about and makes me go back to a game? Modularity.
Oh, okay. Yes, true. Yes, very much so.
So each game, you're going to have an A card and a B card that define what each token does and what your ultimate scoring goals are.
Okay.
And then if you put an expansion, there will be a C card that gives you extra stuff that you're going to score against. So you're going through and you are playing cards out into, like I said, either the center area of the table or into your personal tableau. And you could be affecting other people. You could be affecting yourself because if a troll comes out, he's just going to steal a princess.
Right.
If the king is out and it's the day, then you have a really happy king that is going to score based on these certain conditions. But if it's nighttime, you want the unhappy evil king that's going to score based on these other conditions.
Okay.
So there's a lot of really cool back and forth of how am I going to use the cards that are on the table? What cards am I going to sacrifice to the center of the table that might be used against me? And it's really straightforward. Draw a card, play a card. It's right around in that area. The game's from 2014. I love the game. It uses these tarot-sized cards. They're very thin. Mine are very worn because I played this game a lot. But this is one you were able to find at Barnes & Noble for like $10-15 back in the day, and the expansions were just as cheap. It's great. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world that likes it. So I have to call it a table just because I find it so weirdly hard to get people to play it, but I absolutely love it.
That's great. It sounds very interesting.
I think you would like it, but I say that to a lot of people, and they're like, why are we playing this?
That's fair.
And that is Dark Tales.
Dark Tales. Who made that one?
This was DV Giochi. It is an Italian publisher. It came out of Pierluca Zizi. I don't know if I've ever played anything else of his, but yeah.
Wow.
2014.
Wow. So my last game, again, is another table. Do you like the French Revolution? I like the French Revolution, and there's nothing that makes me happier.
Guillotine?
It is freaking Guillotine.
Never played it.
Really?
Seen the box many times. Haven't played it.
God, I love this game. It's so simple and so dumb. I love it because you're literally just manipulating the line to off people. It's so stupid. I love it. It was originally done by Wizards of the Coast and Amigo and the Darwin Project all the way back in 1998.
It's that old?
It's that old.
Wow, because that one edition that's rolling around has to be like 15 years old at this point.
Yeah. And it came out just after I graduated high school.
Wild.
I didn't realize all my games are really old. Niet came out in 97.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Well, I didn't mean to go
because I didn't pick
10
up
plus years on most of mine.
Well, the whole thing is, it's like, oh, Niet, I love that game. And I was like, I'll just go with all these small box. But yeah, Niet is 1 year older, and I didn't pick it up until, oh my God, probably like 10 years ago.
Which just speaks to the quality of some designs and why they hang around.
Such a good game. Yeah, so Guillotine, you are manipulating the line of people that are currently dying to get to the guillotine. You have the purple that are royals, the red that are military, your blue are clergy, green are your common folk, and then there are the grays, which are the heroes of the people, which you don't want to kill. You're playing cards in front of you to either manipulate the line, so you could shuffle the line however it wants, or playing cards that give you bonus points, or, I mean, my favorite is the Scarlet Pimpernel, because all of a sudden it's like, yep, game's done, or this round's done, because you only play for 3 days. But then there's like extra load, and you add 3 more people to the line.
That's funny.
And it's just, like, I think the longest I've ever had the line was I think it was just 16. I think there's only like 2 cards, but like, you start with like 10, and then you could add another 2 threes, and you're like 16 people, and you're just trying to manipulate that line to make sure that, like, if I'm going red to get the military, they stack on each other. Purples work in pairs because they're the royals, so you want to get the lord and the lady. You want to get the count and the countess.
That's funny.
Because they work towards each other. It's such a silly game, but there was a little bit of complex strategy there when you're sitting there just like, and if you can't do anything, well, you can't do anything. You end the turn by offing the person that's the closest to the guillotine.
Yeah.
So much fun. One of my favorite cards was always holding on to Let Them Eat Cake. If Marie Antoinette was in the line, she moves to the front of the line.
That's awesome.
And so, like, it's, oh, I have nothing, but there's Marie Antoinette, because you could play 1 card and then you take 1 person out. And so it would be like, Marie Antoinette, boom, move to the head of the line. And then that's 5 points.
Head of the line.
And, yes, that was always my favorite part of the joke. But yeah.
Nice.
Guillotine. Fantastic, fun little game. And it was just fun to have that little paper guillotine sitting in the front.
That makes sense.
That's it was literally like, it's like one of those little boxes, you just pop out the little tab, so it just sit there, and you're just like, funny. That just showed you where the end, because there was also, it was like reverse order, so you literally just take the guillotine, put it on the other end of the thing, and literally go in the opposite direction. Phenomenal fun game.
Huh. I don't know that I've ever really known anybody to own it, so I've just never had an opportunity to play it.
Well, I guess I have to go find these things and pull them out of my closet, because I know that's where they're at. They're in my closet, so because they're that old. I have them in like storage.
What's the first one again?
Roll for it.
I
might leave that one, but
you brought 3 games that I've never played, and I am pretty sure I brought 3 games you've never played.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Oh, I know I haven't played Sentient. I know I haven't played Dark Tales. What's the third one?
So the third one is one that I have mentioned before in the podcast. I have never brought it into this particular segment.
Okay.
And it has been since episode 8 was the last time I mentioned it.
Oh, wow.
It is my all-time favorite dungeon crawler. In fact, it is pretty much the only dungeon crawler I like. I was going to try and theme my picks around other video game board games, but wasn't able to pull that off because this is the only one that I own, as it turns out. And
great.
That is Gears of War.
Yeah, nope, never played that one either.
Gears of War came out from Fantasy Flight Games in 2011. This was Corey Kinezka as the designer. This is using the content from Gears 1 and Gears 2 in the board game. There was a very small run, and I'm so happy I have it, print-on-demand expansion, so you actually had to reach out to Fantasy Flight for them to print it for you, and that's how you got it mailed to you. And you are just playing through scenarios from the first 2 games. Unfortunately, it came out just before Gears 3 came out. It's never had any other expansions other than that little one, which means that Gears 3 and Gears Judgment aren't part of it. There are no other Gears games. I don't know what you're talking about. But as a thematic exercise of making a dungeon crawler engaging and fun and just, you're always yelling because the dice are literally weighted to hit and the defense dice are weighted to miss. So you are trying to put out as much damage as possible while getting yourself into these situations where you can get into cover, like you would in the video game, and try and maximize your defense as much as possible. There is a scaling difficulty system. There's also adjustments for spawn rates and everything based on player count, because if you're playing with only one of the Delta Squad, it's still very challenging because you had to deal with everything that's out there. It represents all those weapons from the game. So you're a Lancer, you can either use it as a standard assault rifle, so you're going to roll a handful of dice, or you're going to use it as the chainsaw, and you are going to roll based on a special ability. It has a really smart line of sight and ammunition system.
Okay.
So if you're in cover, you're just going to draw line of sight to the point of the cover. And if they can't see that without intersecting a wall, that's full cover, you can't be shot. Otherwise, if you're not in cover, it is just a line anywhere from area to area without, again, crossing a solid wall. So tactical positioning is important because whenever you take a turn, you're going to play a card. And generally speaking, on your turn, you're only going to play one card. What is very important is that your cards are also your health. So if you are down to no cards in hand, you're still alive because at the start of every turn, you'll draw 2 cards. But if you get shot, you're down. And depending on the difficulty mode and depending on if there's anybody else with you, it's pretty hard to get brought back up because somebody else will have to burn one of their cards to stand you up. But it also has this amazing mechanism in it where if I am doing something, you can discard one of your cards for a multi-use action, depending on the icon on the card. So you can run along with me, or you get to take a shot before I get shot at by the enemy. You can increase your defense, that type of stuff. But the ammunition and weapon system is so cool because each weapon will have a standard firing pattern of here's 2 dice, whatever. Or you can burn an ammo token and now you're going to get to roll 4 dice or 5 dice or whatever.
Okay.
But if you ever run out of ammunition tokens, you can't use the weapon at all because you've spent all your ammo.
That's not good.
So you really have to be careful because the only weapon with infinite ammo is the snub pistol, which shoots for 1 die. It's not going to do much.
No, you're not going to do much of anything.
It is all scenario based. So you're going to set up a row of map tiles and there's some neat ideas there. But what happens in the game is just like in the Gears video game where everything will go swimmingly until all of a sudden everything falls apart and now you're just trying to survive. Gears of War has largely been described as Murphy's Law, the video game series, and this is Murphy's Law, the board game. It is
nice,
excellent. I have a great time with every time. Beautiful minis. This is one that it is so hard to find. And if you can, it is annoyingly expensive. And that little expansion is as expensive as the entire box again. People are ridiculous about it.
Oh my gosh.
One of my all-time favorite games. I go back and I play it, and even 14 years after its release at this point, I still enjoy everything this game does. Yes, my love of the theme goes a long way, but it is such a well-designed system. Gears of War is one of those games that I wish Fantasy Flight had kept the license for or could get it back, do more content, do more with it. It's phenomenal.
That's great.
So good.
It sounds interesting.
So it's ironic that we brought nothing but old games to this episode because now our rotating segment for the week is Visions of the Future. What are we excited about? There's some cool stuff out there. There's cool stuff coming. We've talked a lot about games that we've loved for years. Scott, what are you excited to talk about this week?
This is going to come as a shock to nobody because I keep talking about this company. I am very excited about Dice Throne Outcasts and the Adventures Unchained. So the reason why I'm so excited about this, one, the Dice Throne Outcast is introducing 4 new characters. The Pale Lady, the Raveness.
Who I really want to play those two. I really want to play Raveness.
The Necromancer, and the Headless Horseman. I'm very excited about those because it's going to be new mechanics, it's going to be new characters. I think it's going to be great. So the reason why I'm so excited about it is, yes, it has 4 new characters, but the big part is the Adventures Unchained section. This is the first time that Dice Throne Adventures has had its own expansion. I've talked about Dice Throne Adventures and the fact that it is a cooperative version of the game, and I'm really geeking to find out exactly what we're going to get in that Unchained portion of Dice Throne Adventures. So obviously it's going to give us more objects. I'm going to have I know that there is a new end boss. So obviously there's going to be new cards that go with that new boss. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how the 4 new characters play in a cooperative setting. Because since they're outcasts, my brain goes, oh, we only like to play by ourselves. And when you're sitting there dealing with Dice Throne and how they made that game cooperative with the map, with the monsters that get played, which I know you haven't gotten to play. Jason wants to play it as well.
I think Adventures is going to be the way I like the game.
I would put money down, but why would I go for a safe bet? I know you're going to like it because the whole thing is it's completely fresh. It's completely new. The modularity is insane. So the fact that I'm getting more stuff for something that I love. Dice Throne itself, we all know. I've given it a 10.
It's your number one game.
It's my number one game. Dice Throne Adventures is like 12. It's a 12 out of 10 for me because of how much fun it is. It's fun solo. It's fun in groups. I want my stuff. I want my stuff now. I know when it comes to Dice Throne that they're doing some different things because the X-Men set comes out and the retail version will be this group of 4 and that group of 4. So I'm wondering if that's what they're working towards now, is that they're going to be releasing things in groups of 4. So you get 4 characters at a time. It makes me very interested.
So you're going to be ridiculous with me because my game hasn't even hit crowdfunding yet.
Okay. We're going that well. Okay.
That is how blitheringly excited that I am that this is coming out.
Okay.
So if you were around me during September, October, early November as well of 2024, you knew that I was playing an endless amount of Blasphemous. And Blasphemous is one of the best video games I have ever played. It is the reason I was thinking of doing a video game theme. That's why I grabbed Gears. And it is essentially a Metroidvania game mixed with Dark Souls. I don't particularly like Dark Souls. I don't have time or patience for super punishing games, but the theme of Blasphemous just sucked me in entirely. And the world is grim and grotesque and dark and brutal, and it's all based on this very specific sect of Catholicism, and it is just fascinating. You can get lost in this world. And one of the things that is so great about the video game is that while it is a brutal difficulty, never once does it feel cheap. Never once do you die because the game was unfair. Everything is fair. It is just a matter of, can you get to a point where you're good enough to interact with the game? And it is this gorgeous art style. Blasphemous 2, I played an enormous amount of as well. That's the other reason I played it so much within those 2 months. I played both of them multiple runs in a row. And while Blasphemous 2 is not as good as the first one, okay, I think number 1 is absolutely incredible. It's worth every cent. 2 is very, very good, but is not as much of an interesting gameplay as the first one, but the story is still excellent. I went on to save the Game Found campaign for something earlier today, and it popped up in that top banner of Blasphemous, the board game. And I'm like, and I stopped doing what I was doing. In fact, I forgot to save the other campaign because I got so excited looking at Blasphemous and seeing what's coming. And they have brought in the other orders of the penitents within the game, and everything that you're doing is still the evolution of your weaponry, and there's the difficulty that's there apparently, and all this stuff is there, and they very intelligently made it competitive. Everything about this looks great. It comes from Nova Aetas Games, I believe that's how you pronounce it. They did Black Rose Wars and some other stuff. I know this is not going to be cheap, and I am very terrified to see what its price is because I really want this. I know what little's on the preview page right now, and I would almost never bring something like this, but that is how much I love Blasphemous. Wow. I cannot wait.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It has a month and a half before the campaign goes live.
Wait, it has a month and a half before the campaign even goes live?
Yeah.
Friend.
I know.
Okay, I don't feel bad about any of the things that
Blasphemous is so good. And this could be an incredible game. It could be terrible. I don't know. But you know, whenever we do this, I almost always bring something that I already own, that I know stuff about. Like, I am that research person. This is my big shiny game. Like, I get to be that. Like, look how excited I am. This is so cool.
You are unreal. I love it.
I'm so excited.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's... It hasn't even started yet, and he's already over here drooling, folks. Okay.
I don't get excited about games like this very often.
That's true.
Because I go out of my way, I research, I do all the things. I make sure of who's a developer, who's a publisher, what's the artist. Like, I do all the things. I don't just froth.
Here's my money.
This I'm frothing.
And this is it. Here's my money.
Yeah. So long as it's, like I said, at least reasonably attainably priced, yeah, I'll be going all in on this thing. But if it's like $400, I won't. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you'd like to get in touch with Scott and myself, or any of the other theater geeks in relation to Board All the Time, you can hit us up at boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com, on Blue Sky at boardallthetime.bsky.social. You can visit us on our website, boardallthetime.com, where we have a newsletter sign-up, feedback form, archive of our episodes, and links to all of our social media, including our Facebook page. You can also join us on our Discord. The server link is in the episode notes. And finally, we'd like to ask that if you enjoy our episodes, please give us the like and follow us on your platform of choice. We know you hear that a lot, but after doing this many episodes, we really do now understand how important it is to help the show grow. Regardless, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
At this time, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Do you like shiny math rocks? I like shiny math rocks. Go to Robin's Nerd Supplies and use the code TheaterGeeks and receive 10% off your order. Links to the website is in our episode notes. Also, we'd like to thank EcoL Press, a local printing company here in the South Bend area. Happens to be a union shop, and they do everything for your gaming printing needs. And what's so nice is that they're environmentally friendly. You will also be able to check them out in our episode notes.
Look at that, Scott. We actually managed to be relatively contained in our overall length of the episode today.
Well, I mean, I love him, but Jason wasn't here.
It's because it was just the two of us, but even still, we have been recording a lot recently. So having a tight episode, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I like it.
And with that, I'm really bored of you. I'm going to go play some Blasphemous. Get out of my house.
Fine, jerk. Because you know I have a problem.
Yes?